We're joined today by Steve Prominence, the CEO of Lake Resources. Lake have had some big news out today, post their webinar on Friday on the Share Cafe Hidden Gems webinar. On that webinar, Steve, we had over 100 US-based investors for the first time. Big list, a lot of them like shareholders. Can you talk about the interest in the lithium space in the US at the moment?
Thank you very much for coming back on again. I must say that in the US, the investors there are very favorably predisposed towards stories with clean technology, of which Lake is a part of. And they're also very favorably predisposed towards stories about the whole energy transition. We've seen electric vehicles do a major uplift, not just Tesla, but others. And we've seen around the world major mega factories being built to build batteries. And so now the eye is being cast on the supply side. And with all these mega factories, that supply has to come from somewhere. And I think the transition to the Biden administration has probably accelerated that interest. As you know, we trade on the OTC as LLKKF. We finally got live clearance and settlement, and that also assists investors over there. Plus, at the end of the day, and I'm the CEO, but based on comparisons, we're still somewhat undervalued versus our peers.
Steve, you announced to the ASX today you've raised through an institutional placement just over 20 million Australian dollars. You're obviously approached by a US investment bank. Who took up that placement?
The investment bank who've approached us, we have had conversations with them over some time, along with many others. But they essentially came to us and said, we can do this at quite a good price, and we can put this out to a global institutional base. They're spread around Australia, North America, the UK, EU, and they did all of this over the weekend. It was heavily oversubscribed, and they only went out to a few names. Naturally, there was some people who contacted us that would have liked to have participated in that. But when somebody comes along with a deal like that, it's very hard to say no. Then secondly, the Roth Capital also helped support a similar company, Standard Lithium, about 6 or 7 months ago. And they have worked with them as their market value has gone up significantly over the last 6 or 7 months. So it'd be great to see a similar sort of outcome with somebody who understands the space and investors who also understand the space.
Steve, there's been a lot of talk about the US, and previously you've spoken about Europe. Where's Europe in the equation now?
It's very interesting what's happening there. I think I shared in our last discussion that on December 10, the EU Commission came out and said from the middle of 2024, batteries that come in for electric vehicles and other batteries need to have a CO2 footprint, but they also need to have all of the elements going into that battery as traceable and responsibly sourced. And we're one of the few providers who can do that. So the interest both on the battery supply chain as well as ESG investors in Europe are very favorably predisposed towards this story. And I think you're going to hear a lot more about it.
Steve, you've raised $20 million. Some of those funds are going to the definitive feasibility study. They can cost around $20 million. What for investors who don't understand, what does that process involve?
Okay, so let's break that down a bit. So definitive feasibility study, just the study itself, is indicatively around $3 million. Then you have additional work that goes with it. There's about another $1.5 million or so for the environmental social impact assessment. Then you've got additional production wells that go around that. And we also want to have the demonstration plant running on site. And then there's a few ancillary things. So, you know, for round numbers, that's probably about $10 million for a project like this. And we'll provide some more guidance on that. But that's a sort of an indicative number to have in your back of your head. So we had the definitive feasibility study funded on the money that we had at hand in January. And then with the options converting come June, July, we expect another 5 million through that. So we were okay. But the beauty of this is that now there's no need for another capital raising prior to the round of discussions on construction finance. Furthermore, the last thing you want to be is unexpected delays. I mean, nobody picked the pandemic last year. We were very well positioned back in February, March to do all of this funding and ran straight into that. So it's always good to have a little bit extra just to make absolutely certain you can do everything.
Steve, so with this definitive feasibility study, does that open up a conversation with offtake partners, or do you have to do that first before you have those discussions?
So the discussions we've had with offtake partners have been ongoing for some time, and I suspect in the current environment they will probably expand. The key thing that each offtake partner wants is a sample of our product, and so that's why we put our material through the pilot plant, getting it processed by Hazen, so we can then send off to various offtake partners. But that process takes time. Furthermore, last time I was on this show, I mentioned how we are specifically trying to focus at tier 1 off-takers and tier 1 partners. And given that we're not in production yet, that's always harder. But the sheer fact that we've got a high quality product that has an ESG benefit, that makes it appealing to them. So that was one of the reasons why we were working with Novonix to help that whole process. Also, when we talk to electric vehicle makers, we say to them, if you'd like to have this product in your supply chain, direct us to your battery makers, direct us to your cathode makers. And that helps sort of for this, what we call a bottom up and a top down approach. It does take time, but we anticipate them to be very well advanced by this time next year. And hopefully during that time, we can actually say a little more about who we've been speaking with.
Thanks, Steve. You've had an exciting, extremely exciting start to 2021, and we look forward to chatting to you again.
Look, this is a very busy year for us, next 12, 18 months. But the great thing is we're now funded. We can actually just go and deliver that. And I think investors will actually be positively surprised at some of the additional news that's coming down the pipe. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Steve.